Let's do this. Let's do this, guys, because I know that we can do this. Let's get this going. My name is Jose Trujillo. I am the world's greatest living artist. Bzz, 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 bzz. Bzz, and stuff. I just finished painting this little bee painting earlier today. Just about a few minutes ago. And I'm going to be doing another painting. So check it out. And let's put this one aside and then let's do this other one. Okay, let me move this so that way it's not on the way. And now I'm going to do some grapes because grapes are so cool like that. So I'm going to show you how I do some grapes, okay, with oil. So I want to do the idea that there's grapes here, right? Because remember, it's suggestive, guys, okay? You want to suggest that something is happening. Okay? You don't want to, it's not so much, you're describing something with a suggestion. Okay? I think this is why a lot of artists have a hard time doing loose brush work, because they're like, I can't get it to do realistically. It's not supposed to. You're supposed to suggest that something's happening there. Okay, so I'm going to start out with some purple. Purple rain, purple rain. There you go. Some blue and purple. Okay, and then I'm going to do some blue and purple right here. Just to suggest that there's some grapes, right? Why not? And then I'm going to move on to something a little bit lighter. I'm going to use some magenta with a little bit of red. Now this is just to suggest, again, that there is something else happening over here. Right? And you can even use different colors. You can go loco like me and start using yellows. And why not? I'm only suggesting, see, when you allow yourself to go a little bananas, that's where the good stuff starts happening. You know, you have to allow yourself you almost have to tell yourself, I'm going to make up all kinds of mistakes. You know, happy little accidents, as Bob Ross used to call them. And then that's where the good stuff starts coming out. You start allowing yourself to make accidents. The whole point of life seems to be accidents. As the great Elmo said from Sesame Street, accidents happen. And that's okay. Okay, so here we go. Look. There we go. Bam, bam, bam. Okay. Something like that. We have some powerful colors right there next to each other. And then we jump right into our dark greens, right? Now, you don't have to follow the book with dark greens, but let's do it for the sake of this right now. Let's do some dark greens. Now, remember what I talked about in other videos? You want to be constantly checking out the edge of your painting. This is one of the ways that I like to do it. Of course, you're going to figure out your own way. But if you're getting started and you're like, dude, how do you do that? How do I do that? I'm only paying attention to the edge. If I'm not paying attention to the edge, I'm not really being zen about it. I'm being more like desperate and I'm trying to, you know, run through something. You're not really paying attention to the brush. You're doing something else. You know, I treat this almost as a meditation. It helps me to get out of my head. But the only way that it gets you out of your head is that you're constantly paying attention to something that you wouldn't pay attention to. The edge. You know, normally we wouldn't pay attention to the edge. The edge is what you want to pay attention to. I know it sounds weird, but this has been an aha that I discovered in many, many hours of painting. Okay? After many, many hours of painting, I started realizing, oh man, like, you take your time, but you go fast. I've only heard one other person express it this way, and that was Wyatt Earp. I know it's crazy because I live in Arizona. So there's a little town right here where a lot of people go, and there's this story of Tombstone, right? It's called Tombstone. People go because there was like some sort of, like, I don't know, altercation or whatever, some violent stuff, you know, back in the Old West. They were shooting each other and whatnot. And Wyatt Earp was asked, from what I understand, I remember reading, how was he able to survive so many of those difficult moments, right? He was a what was he? He was a sheriff. How was he able to survive those difficult moments and like gunfights and all that kind of stuff? That kind of shit that happens sadly in our country, right? But I'm talking about the Old West. And he said, you have to go very fast, but take your time. It's very fast, but you have to take your time. And I never heard anyone else say it that way. That to me was almost, shit, it was almost spiritual when I heard that. It's super zen. But he probably didn't know that, or maybe he did, I don't know. It's super, super, super zen. It's zen. It's like living in full capacity. I recognize that sometimes in painting. That you have to go fast, but you got to take your time. And the way to do that is to pay a lot of attention, immense attention to what you're doing, that it almost seems like time stopping. You pay so much attention that it seems like time is just like stops for you. It's the weirdest thing. Some people call it the zone. Other people call it the now. I've read a book recently where this author calls it the power of now. And I remember reading old Catholic mystic books. They call it the eternal moment or the eternal present. And it's because you're so in, right? That it seems almost as if time stopped. That's the feeling, actually. It feels like you have more than enough time. It's the weirdest thing. It's not weird, but it's the. See, you're not trying to move anywhere. You're there so much that you're not really trying to move anywhere. You're not trying to go anywhere. There is no place to go. There is no necessity to get anywhere or anything done. Nothing is wrong. Some people call it right action because nothing is wrong. When you're not doing that, like for example, I'm not really doing that right now. I've been having a bit of a little bit of difficulty to get back in. It's a swing. I call it a swing, right? So sort of like golfers. They have their swing. It's very rare, but I tend to lose it from time to time, and I know why I lose it. I know when I lose it, it's because I'm thinking. When I lose it, I'm thinking. And when I'm thinking, it's because I'm thinking about, oh man, I got to get to the next thing, and I got to get to the. So you lose it in the past and in the future. That's where you lose it. You either go to the past and you start thinking about all the shit that you did wrong or all the shit someone else did, and you're thinking about that, or you go to the future to all the shit that you have to do that you haven't done. So you lose it. That's why the mystics, the Catholic mystics, and I think all religions. I am sure that all religions have tapped into that. The Catholic mystics used to call it the eternal moment. They say that that's where God lives. Right? I don't know. I don't know about that, but let's call it that, right? I'm almost sure that that's probably true, but I don't know, like, theoretically, right? So you can't really go to the past, you can't really go to the future. You can only be here. And when you paint from here, you start paying a lot of attention. Like you go into the painting. I think that's the place where Van Gogh used to paint, to be quite honest. That's why he left us a lot of beautiful writings about that. Because you go in a way that time doesn't bother you, and you get everything done. It's the weirdest thing. It's because you're not taking your time. You're being one with time. You're not taking your time. It's not like you're taking your time purposely. You're actually inside the real time, the true existing time. And in order for that to happen, you got to stop thinking. You cannot be in time. I call it being in time too. You cannot be in time and thinking at the same time. It doesn't happen that way. It will never happen that way. It does not work that way. You're either in time or you're out. Okay? You're either in time or you're out of time. Outside of time. This has been my secret to painting in bliss. It's the only way I can paint in bliss. Either you're in time or you're not. So the way to practice that is to go in very slow. See, the thing is that our nervousness, our anxiety, makes us, I gotta get to the next thing. Why is the painting not coming out right? Oh man. See, but if you go really slow, you have to slide in there. It's like this is where most people live, right? And then you have to really like slide. And it's almost like you're taking the subway. Or this is where most people live, anxiety or whatever. And it's almost like you have to slide and then you start flying. Either way, right? However you want to look at it, you have to slide in there. You can't go like this. Is very fucking hard. Living like this is very hard because you're constantly punching a wall, right? But once you slide, some religions call it surrendering. You surrender, right? You have to slide the wall. You have to slide it. It's in the movie Indiana Jones, right? When he's walking into the look at me, little Indiana Jones. He's walking into the sacred temple, and his dad left him some notes that he had to kneel so that his head doesn't get chopped off. Remember in that movie in Indiana Jones, the temple of I forgot what the name or Raiders of the I forgot that. I think it was the Last Crusade. Yeah, he's walking into the temple and he has to kneel. This kneeling that he does, this is a transformational aspect of the human being. You have to always kneel. And I'm not saying physically. You have to kneel mentally to everything, because it's very difficult living life not kneeling. You have to always surrender to it, so that it can allow you to move. So they can swim in water. The fish doesn't fight the water. The fish surrenders to it. It surrenders. See, it glides. It's not fighting the water. We human beings, we tend to be a lot stupid sometimes. We tend to fight our way through things, but we have to slide. And we don't slide with our bodies, we have to slide our mind. The mind has to drop. It has to drop, right? Like you're here, you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to paint, I'm going to do all these things. But it's forceful. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. You have to surrender it. You have to surrender it, and then you'll achieve a whole other state of living. I get to touch it in segments. I don't live there. I don't really care. It doesn't really matter. What does matter is that I get to touch it when I can. That's really what matters for me. And I do that when I paint. I believe painting is sort of prayer. It's a prayer. It's a spiritual practice, because it forces me to go inside. See, I'm going to paint something. Right? And I really have to go in there. I'm not talking about detail, guys. I'm talking about really just going in there. Like really, when you start going in there, it's like the rabbit it's like Alice in Wonderland. You go into the rabbit hole. Right? You go into the rabbit hole. You don't lose awareness, you actually become aware of what you're doing. You become so aware that it's really you become a master painter, whether you know it or not, in that moment. whether you're able to repeat it or not, you become a master painter because you're able to tap into things that other people have no access, or they do have access, but they don't know that they have access to. It's a whole other game. All right, guys. I know I went super esoteric on you guys right now, but nevertheless, that is how I paint. So I wanted to share that with you guys. These are supposed to be, I'm suggesting, some grapes. I love them. They're beautiful. This is also the same way in which people look at other things. When people say that's beautiful and then someone says, it's ugly, right? They're looking at it from the space inside. When people go, oh my God, that's beautiful. You're really, the painting is just a mirror. You're really just reflecting how you feel. Now there's some art there. I'm not saying that because if you don't like it, that means that that's how you feel. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not talking about aesthetically. I'm talking about when you see the deeper meaning or the deeper feeling, the feeling of it. It's the feeling. It's not the meaning. It's not the mental meaning. There's nothing mental about it. When you feel like, oh man, like I feel a little something when I see that painting. It feels a little, I don't know, peaceful. It feels a little something. When you see a painting, you go to a museum and you feel a little, I don't know, like you can rest by just looking at it. That painting is really just a mirror into your soul. I believe that. Every time you look at a painting and you can rest, you rest your mind, it's really just a mirror into your soul. And that's why you love looking at it, because your mind is in that place. Your soul is in a pure state. Your soul is always connected to the source. It's always in a pure state. It is always in a pure state. Your soul is untouched. I don't care what you've done or what you think you've done. Your soul is always untouched. It's in a pure state. So it looks at everything from that place. That's why we're able to recognize beauty. That's how human beings are able to recognize beauty. Because it's always in you. It's never left you. It will never leave you. It's always in you. All right, guys. I'll leave you with that. My name is Jose Trujillo. I'm the world's greatest living artist. World's greatest living artist. Take care, guys. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.